Everybody, welcome back to Steel City Live. I'm Jason, and this is our special guest, Merril Hoge, former Pittsburgh Steeler, former Chicago Bear, inspirational speaker, a whole bunch of stuff. But thank you, Merril. I appreciate you so much for joining us today.
Man, it's my pleasure, Jason. Sorry it took us a little bit to get linked up here, but I'm glad we did, buddy.
Yes, thank you so much. I've admired your career from afar. All the things that you've been through, it's really truly inspirational speaker, all that stuff. So that's really, really cool. Dive into this a little bit here. Former Chicago Bear, former Pittsburgh Steeler, all of that stuff. Uh, what I just want to know what has got you here through your life, got you to what you're doing today with all this inspirational speaking, your books, all of that kind of stuff. Just what has got led you here to this point?
Well, I will tell you this: it's probably these. It starts right here and it ends right here. The find a way. Those words have helped me live a dream and fight to live, and a lot of in between. They sent me on a journey as a kid. When I put the goal up, I'll play in the National Football League in my bedroom, and when I did that, I call it my first moment of truth in life, where after I pinned it up, I put my favorite player, Walter Payton, and my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And every time somebody had asked me, what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be as a kid, I'd tell them I'm going to play in the National Football League. And every time I did that, one of four things was said to me right after I said that. They'd go, "Oh my gosh, you know how hard that is? Oh, you know what the odds you playing in the NFL are? Oh, son, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We wouldn't want you to be disappointed." Or, "That's impossible." And that's the only thing I ever heard. So when I pinned that up in my room, when I had my dad make me a wall of cork, and I pinned all of my goals up, and when I sat and looked at that goal that day, um, I remember thinking or just revisiting all the things that people had said to me, and I call it my first moment of truth in life. I mean, everybody will be able to identify with this. I've had many since, but it was my first real moment of truth, and I call a moment of truth in life is where like a decision or a commitment has to be made. And whatever that decision or commitment or level of commitment that you make is going to make a difference in the journey. And as I let those things think about, I let those things absorb my thought process. I kept looking at that goal and I'm like, oh, that's just words on a wall, really. And at that moment, that's when I committed. I opened myself up, those up there to be words on a wall. I did it because I want to do that. And so I committed to it. And in that process of committing to it, the words "find a way" pop into my head. And I'm telling you, they give me an energy, a bolt of energy, just like they do now. Like they're over on my wall right there, because they inspire me to do the one thing that we all must do, regardless of your circumstance. And that's do something about it, take action. And that just moved me. That moved me to do something about it. And those words sent me on a journey. They sparked action. They sparked me to do something. It changed my thought process. I was energized by it. In fact, I put those words at the top of my wall. I put all my goals below it. And that's actually how it's been ever since. That's some 46 years ago that
Wow.
that first happened. And they're just supposed to help me live a dream, but they've helped me fight to live. And like I said, a lot of in between.
Amen. That's awesome. That's very inspirational. And I know you had said that I've read that you went through open heart surgery, you fought
Yeah.
cancer, all that, and you got through all of that with those words. And that's really, really remarkable. And when you were with the Chicago Bears, I had read maybe that you had got head trauma. Is that what ended your career with Chicago? And how did you use those words, and were you able to get over being out of the NFL, in that way, using the find a way mantra?
Yeah, well, find a way would come to play a role in that as well. My career, actually, that's always misunderstood. My career and how my career ended is often misunderstood and somewhat mysterious because of a few things. So the first one is, and I try to make this clear, my career ended because of improper care. It
Hmm.
is of head trauma. That is still the biggest issue today. It's about care. It's not head trauma. Uh, and that doesn't mean head trauma is okay, because we try to reduce that and minimize it the best we can. But if you don't want to have head trauma, I think you need to actually have a perspective on where the most head trauma happens in our country, and what causes the most head trauma in our country. So the leading cause of head trauma in the entire country is tripping and falling. The most dangerous environment where that's probably going to happen is your home. So if people are like, well, my kids aren't going to play sports, I'm not going to let them play contact sports, I don't want them to have head trauma. That actually shouldn't be where you should be worried about, because actually there's protocols and care and equipment in that arena. There's no protocols and care and equipment in the home.
Right.
You slip in a shower, fall down the stairs, fall off the trampoline. I mean, there's a whole host of things. So I have a philosophy. I live by what I trust, not by what I fear. And when you don't understand that head trauma, and 99% of head trauma, especially in sports, can really be cared for, treated, and recovered from. Doesn't mean you're not going to have, you can't have symptoms. Doesn't mean it's going to be an arduous journey, because it was for me. But done right and cared for properly, what happened to me should never happen. If you remember what happened to Tua and that experience on that Thursday night game, well, mine was much worse because I went into cardiac arrest, but mine was in the locker room.
Wow.
So people didn't see that. They rushed me to the hospital. I laid in intensive care for days. Had to learn how to read again. My career was ended because of that. I went through severe depression, and I'd lost everything on that day. At 30 years old, I had no hope, no purpose, and no vision, and I had nothing to look forward to. And I was in some dark places. And since I've lived that experience, and I understand how critical mental health is, and the state that you can be in and how dark it can be. And I also understand things that help you get out of that state. And the one thing I always refer to, no matter what program I'm working with, that people have to take ownership at some point. Like, I'm laying on that couch, and listen, every day I point fingers, cast blame, I make excuses. And I go even darker, and I spiral further and further into that couch, into dismay with no hope. I'm blaming the doctor. I feel sorry for myself. I'm angry. I had to finally get off the couch and do something about my life's work and what I was going to do next. And I realized that, as dark as I was, there was this little flicker of hope. And that flicker of hope was me doing the right thing and getting off the couch. That first step, that initial step, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it didn't just go, it wasn't just bed of roses after that. It was a 5-year journey digging myself out. But had I not taken that ownership at that point, then really the people that offered such great help, I remember Lynn Swan had reached out to me because he knew I was interested in broadcasting, and he had offered for me to come up and watch him and Keith Jackson and Bob Greasy, because they were the #1 crew in ABC for the college football game. And I wouldn't even return his call. I was so mad and angry and just, depressed, and, point fingers, cast blame. But that day I got off the couch, I was like, okay, I'm going to return that call. And I'd make that return call. Lynn sets things up. I had a car take me up to Champaign, Illinois. I met him up there, spent 2 days with him. And I still obviously think about Lynn Swan and thank him for helping me out of that dark space. But I had to do the first move and get off the couch and give the call. And, people that are struggling with that, I try to help them with that perspective, that at some point you got to take ownership of this. Okay. And ownership doesn't mean that you have been wrong. You may have been wronged all in everything that happened. Everything that happened to me, I was wronged in all kinds of ways. However, if I keep that going, then they win. Taking ownership is about breaking chains, ending cycles, and creating something new for yourself. And it wasn't until I just realized that I needed to create something new for myself. I went after playing in the National Football League since I was age 12. And now I need to do that exact same habits towards my life's work, as Chuck Noll would put it. And I focused on two things: coaching and broadcasting. And whichever line whichever line I threw out caught a fish quick, that's the way I was going to go. And the broadcasting thing just started to take off, and so I went down that road. But that was one of the hardest transitions that I have ever gone through in my life, and it helped me go through It helped me go through the other one some 21 years later when my career ended at ESPN. I had to do it again, and in that transition, it took me about 1 hour to get everything ready to go, and I was ready to move on.
You're ready to rock then. You had it down. You had it down pat. Now, with all that, and you said how the concussions or how the mistreatment sent you down that road, sent you down that spiral, maybe, everything went downhill from there. You got back up. Now you're looking at today's NFL player and you're looking at the big emphasis on the head injuries and all that kind of thing that they do now and all the new technology in medicine. Um, when they're doing these types of things, with the head injuries, what do you think about them today and how they're treating them? And what about the rule changes that they've made? Do you think that they are, positive in that light? And do you think it's helping the NFL or hurting the defenders by not being able to tackle properly, etc., things like that?
Well, let me first say that I can make that really quick. Okay, the game is as it's safer now than it's ever been. If there was an era to play, and you want your kids to play, now would be the time that you wanted to play for three reasons. Equipment is superior to what we used to have because it used to be paper mache. The helmet today is 10 times, it's 100% better than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago it was designed to to withstand impact. Now it's designed to absorb impact. Protocols, they didn't even exist, until 1991 when the Pittsburgh Steelers implemented it for the very first time in the history of sports.
Wow.
So we didn't even have any protocols, which you do now. You have proper protocols, proper care. And you see, it isn't that you have bad protocols or you have bad care. It's people don't execute them properly.
Right.
And they might be outdated with a particular tool, which you have to be always updated on your particular tools. And you have great teaching. So let's go back to what you just talked about. Is the game better or safer now? And with the rule changes, I was part of the rule changes. I don't know if you've ever heard of heads up football.
No, sir.
Well, heads up football is really a fundamental program launched by USA Football that I helped them launch. Like around the 2011, 12, something like that. And I got all the principles from Chuck Noll, my playbook, right up here. Okay,
Wow.
so I just was the bridge, but all the principles that are heads up football came from Chuck Noll and how he taught. Same foot, same shoulder, rising below, and first contact wins. If you play like that, which I could go through every one of those techniques, it applies to every position and every player. And if they do it right, they're a better player and they're a safer player. And that's what he used to preach. So let's go back to what happened, because I was part of the committee to help clean up the game. And here's what I suggested they do. Let's build everything off the foundation and the art of a tackle. So let's walk through exactly how you are taught to tackle, how everybody is taught to tackle, the proper way to tackle. And then let's make them tackle people to the best in the world. Nobody should argue that or be angry at that because you're the best in the world. There's nobody in the world that should be better at it than you.
Right.
There was only 18 to 1900 of you. The reason you're here is because you're the best in the world. So all we're going to do is ask you to tackle people and tackle them properly. And that's how it actually started. That's how, we got to the point where, no more throwing elbows, no more leading and launching. And if you think about it, those aren't fundamental teachings. That's not what you teach.
No.
That's not, you don't practice it. You don't practice, but that's what happened. The game just kind of eroded. Now, I understand from the quarterback perspective.
Right.
I understand that, that has been an arduous challenge because you're asking, this is how I set it up. I go, listen, really the thing, if you'll focus as officials, focus on, okay, from the shoulders above the knee, if somebody's performing the art of a tackle and they're not leading or launching, that shouldn't be a penalty.
Right.
Now I understand people don't call it like that and it's gotten a little worse, but let's back up a little bit too. Prior to that, it is the one position where they can't defend themselves.
Right.
And let's just be real with that and be fair with that. So when players go, I can't hit them anymore, or let's put a flag on them. Cool. Let's do this. Let's let you stand there with your back turned and let somebody take you out, and it might end your career.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we put some rules in, okay, where they can't end your career, and we can protect you a little bit because you have no protection, wouldn't you think that's fair?
Right.
And I think people oftentimes, forget that I can tell you this: if you think this game, listen, it is not as violent as it once was. I'll be the first one
No.
to admit that, but it had eroded in a way that it wasn't real professional football. You're the best in the world,
Mhm.
execute things professionally and do it as good as anybody, because that's why you're here. And the one thing that with all the rule changes that I helped them with and was part of that committee originally, the one thing that was always said is, oh, let's put flags on, can't hit him hard anymore.
Yeah.
There's no language in there that says you cannot hit the other guy as hard as you want to. In fact, we encourage that. Just do it right. Just
Exactly.
execute a tackling right. That's all we're asking. We want you to hit the other guys hard. That's part of the game. Just do it right now. And unfortunately, because it's more happened with the quarterback thing, or when somebody has
Mhm.
an official's made a bad call. Keep in mind, there's 180 plays in a game.
Right.
Official makes a bad call, and everybody thinks that is how the game is played or officiated. That's one of 180 plays. Okay,
Right.
people are going to make mistakes. Humans are going to make mistakes. For the most part, officials do a heck of a job. But the problem is then the media, who has absolutely no concept or understanding of showing the whole concept of numbers, and really this is one play out of the 180. They're like, oh, look at what this bad official did. Look at how bad officiating is. Look at how they're letting you play or not play, and
Mhm.
um, it's unfortunate because that is not the case. In fact, that's what sparked me to create the way to play program
Mhm.
that we have in the National Football League, and we started that about 7 years ago. And it's to recognize players playing the game right, in every aspect of the game. So we want to keep highlighting that and promoting that,
Mhm.
and eventually that will overcome the ignorance on the other end from the media that presents stuff in a manner that they have absolutely no clue on.
Exactly. What do you think too with the change they just recently made, the hip drop? I know that's a big one. I don't fully understand that as much. But what do you
Well,
think of that rule?
that's really kind of how a player gets in a position with enormous leverage. You
Mhm.
almost swing yourself around, you're pulling down, and then that torque, has caused a lot of injuries. I haven't done enough research, and I try to always make sure I stay in a lane. I
Mhm.
am not much more educated on it than you are, other than seeing it.
Mhm.
How you players get in that position and the
Right.
injuries it's caused. I don't think players are trying to do it on purpose,
No.
you know. But now they'll be a little more cautious, of well, or they'll emphasize more of trying to tackle properly. I
Mhm.
keep going back to the art of the tackle. If you
Right.
really try to perform the art of the tackle in every particular angle, there was actually, I got to give LeVar Arrington some credit here, because when we were
Mhm.
doing this, um, LeVar Arrington was playing at the time, or he just retired. He was linebacker from Penn State, played for the Washington Redskins, a beast of a player. And
Yes.
I covered him in high school, actually. And
I played against him in high school. He played for
oh
North
wow,
Hills High
okay.
School. Yeah.
Oh, he was a beast now, as you
Oh,
know.
Lord.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I was talking to LeVar, and I said, oh, well, LeVar I was talking to him about things, principles, how we're going about this. We were
Mhm.
launching Heads Up Football, and he's like, and we're talking about all different angles too. It's very easy, when a guy is coming at you and we break down and we do it, but when a guy makes a cut or he's running at an angle and you're at a different angle, and if you remember, we try to get your head in front of the ball carrier
Right.
and bring your arms. That's the art of a tackle. The one thing that is the poorest at almost every level, because everybody wants to hit people, nobody wants to tackle anybody, is wrapping up, bringing your arms. And if
Yes.
you actually do all the other things right, bringing your arms is the final straw that seals the deal.
Mhm. Right.
I said, what? He goes, oh yeah, man. He goes, that hurt my neck so bad. And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, shoot, a guy at 185 pounds, you're 190, full
Yeah.
speed. I mean, that ain't much for a neck. I don't care how bad you are or big you are. And that's
No.
the one thing that we changed as far as the art of a tackling in positions. And actually that forced the defender to actually use his shoulder and his arms, emphasize even more, because you ain't going to hit him with this shoulder on this side if he's running that way
Right.
and knock him down. He's going to blow right through you. I mean, that would force you to be a
Mhm.
better tackler. And so that was really the only thing that we changed to emphasize it. But now that I've just said all of that, that still doesn't mean people tackle well.
No.
I used to watch tape and I'm like, okay, I can't wait to play this defense. Nobody tackles. Everybody tries to hit people. Like if you keep your balance, you got a shot here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get through you got to break 2 or 3 hits. You don't have to break any
Right.
tackles. Because nobody's
Mm-hmm.
going to bring their arms. Everybody's going to try to hit. And I've always felt that no matter what level you are, if you could emphasize that, you could master it and you could execute it on a consistent basis. That makes you better. That makes you one of the best defenses in football right there. Just be a
Yeah.
good tackler.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think even where they changed the rule now too with the kickoffs, that I think it'll make it more exciting, but I don't know what you think. Do you
Well,
think that that will promote like better tackling, less collisions, like hardcore collisions? You know, do you think that'll
well,
improve things?
here's what's interesting. Actually, we helped. I ran a league with Mike Sherman called Your Call Football.
Hmm.
It was a league that we had launched like 4 5 years ago, I think it was.
Hmm.
And we had 2 teams. I was the head coach of one. He was the head coach of another. And all we were doing is we were playing pro style football. We didn't have special teams. We didn't have blitzing in the thing. So there were some things that we didn't have in the concept of our game, but it was all everything else was professional football and how we execute offense and defense. We had limited fronts and coverages that a defense could play, but it was so fans could call our plays.
Yeah.
So it was like live Madden, where fans called our plays. They watched the game. They called plays, and
uh,
we did that for a couple of years. But in the second year, Mike went to Canada, and I ran the league. And then Solomon Wilcox came in, and we both were. I hired him to be the other head coach, and XFL came into us to help because we had live football players,
right.
and we were playing a game, even though we were doing special teams. But we cut out about 25 minutes of practice every week for them so we could work on this particular kickoff return and
Hmm.
all a bunch of different kickoff returns. This is the one they settled on, but we sat in those coaching meetings. We went through a lot of the strategies behind it. How would you go about it? Because since it was new, we tried to have everybody look at it and go, so how would you be able to, execute this play? First of all, here's what it took away. It took away that guy running for 30 yards and another
Yeah.
guy, making an angle and just having really massive collisions where you've eliminated that. And here's what it's done. I'll just get to where it's done and what you'll see. And I think you'll see it evolve because other great minds will think of this and have enough experience with it. You can now almost orchestrate plays
Right.
from the kickoff. I mean, blocking plays like schemes. You can pull guys around and lead up on stuff. You can create different angles because everybody's close together, and all you have to do is match it up, really time it just right. Versus when you got 10 people screaming down, the timing of everything almost never works. I mean, what you have oftentimes you see kickoff returns that go the distance. Here's what oftentimes has happened: the defense or the kickoff coverage team, they've screwed it up by running behind each other and trailing each other.
Yes.
Everybody getting in line and getting to the ball and creating these voids. And then you just
Yeah.
seal them in and off you go.
Right.
With this one, everybody's going to be accounted for. So, but what you can do is if you make some good blocks and you create some little, almost like designer.
Yeah. Right. Should, no doubt. Mhm. Yeah, it was like over 1,098 touchbacks or something like that, some crazy number. So, yeah. Uh, no. Well, switching gears a little bit, we talked about tackling, talked about some of the rule changes. I wanted to talk about like the upcoming draft that's coming up. You were drafted what 10th round, so they
Yeah.
don't even go that far nowadays. What 1987? How does that draft process that you were in differ from today in the combine and all that they're doing now? How big of a difference is that from what you had did back in 1987?
Well, Jason, first of all, I was the first group of players in the history of the combine in Indianapolis in 1987. And
Wow.
actually, I didn't realize that until they made that
Mm,
reference in this draft. I didn't realize we were the first group ever there. Now,
no.
what we did in 1987, it is a completely different thing than what they do now. Okay, there was no television. I don't even know that there's tape
Yeah.
on it. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there was any tape. And I'm actually grateful for that because if there were, they talk about some of the greatest combine,
Yeah.
greatest combines by any player. I mean, when they have the greatest combine performances in the history of the combine,
Yeah.
if they had the worst combine performance, I would lead that charge. And
Yeah,
I don't say, I say it honestly, because I actually got the flu. I got the flu about 7 days before the combine. So I got really sick. I mean, I was deathly sick. I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. And I kept going. I went to the doctor to get all these prescriptions. And so I told the league about it. I just said, I'm on some medication for my
right.
flu so I could come in. And this is all I spent 2 days prior to going there. This is all I spent doing. The league gives me a warning. They're like, listen, because I don't think that they believed I had the flu. I think they thought I was trying to do something else. They're like,
Yeah.
just be well. He goes, very well documented. Make sure you have your medication right, because if anything comes up other than that, that's not going to be good. So, and listen, I'm just a naive kid from Pocatello, Idaho. I ain't trying to fool anybody, but I just heard of steroids my senior year, by the way,
Yeah.
which is another story. I'd never tried them. I never did it in the, especially after I learned about them.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that being said, I spent 2 days trying to find my doctors and notes so that I didn't show positive. And then I went there and I finished college about 210. I think I probably weighed about 200 when I got to the combine. I was sick. I mean,
Wow.
my 40 was embarrassing. The only thing that I did, listen, I caught almost 200 and, oh shoot, well over 200 balls as a running back in the NCAA. At one point, it was an NCAA record for the most receptions by a running back.
Yeah.
I don't know if that still exists. If it still does, it will never be broken, because nobody's going to play 4 years anymore.
No.
That's the only reason why it broke, because nobody's going to play, and people are throwing it more now, but it'll probably never be broken. But that being said, I don't think I caught a pass. In fact, my first pass, you'll see those drills where they turn around and catch the ball.
Yeah.
My first one, I turn around, poof, right in the face. Now I can't see anything, and the ball poof off my hands. I didn't catch a ball. The only thing that I did really well was the 20-yard shuttle, the
Yeah.
start and stop, which everybody said, "Oh, that one equates to football more than anything." It's the only thing I did worth a dang, but I was terrible. It was awful. And so to see where they are today is somewhat incredible. But I just go to show you that combine. Listen, Chuck Noll taught me a long time ago. There's two types of evaluators. There's measurable evaluators and there's football evaluators.
Yes.
And I would not go well, and I probably didn't get even thought of by anybody who was a measurable evaluator. I only had a chance with people that were football evaluators, and Chuck was a football evaluator.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me, is that, like, guys can shoot up the draft board because they run a 4.2, but when you turn on a football tape, maybe it's something different. And that's what I just feel like there's a lot of wasted time. Do you feel like there's a lot of wasted
I
drills
don't know of
there?
one drill. There's not one drill.
Yeah,
I have not seen. There's not one drill. Well, first of all, I mean, there's not one drill that tells you can play football. There's not one.
exactly.
In
Yes.
fact, when I was there last year, and I was with Dan Rooney Jr. And Dan Rooney Jr. has been in scouting. He's the vice president of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And Dan and I grew up together, because like Dan was on the sideline when I was a player there. I've known Dan forever. He's been scouting for like 26 years, so he's been at the combine, seen it evolve and grow. And so they're doing this drill with the offensive linemen, and they're starting on their backs. And I was like, okay, the time out here. I go, I don't know all 100 and some years of the National Football League. I don't know when it all really started and what exactly was in play. But was there ever a time where you started out laying on your back?
No.
Is there ever a time? In fact, that's where you don't want to be.
Yeah, that's the bad one.
I'd rather see a guy, what kind of stance are they in, how they come out. Stand. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yes.
What are they really doing? You know what though? It's a people say, well, all the measurables are important, and I think I'm not going to listen. The more measurables you can get, yes, I mean, but there's one place that doesn't lie, and it tells the truth, and that is tape.
Amen.
I don't care if a guy ran a 4.240 or a 4.340. If I get him on tape and I'm like, he cannot play football. That 4.2 or 4.3. Shoot, if that was the case, I'd go to the Olympics, and everybody who doesn't make the Olympic trials in the 100-yard dash, I'd make them a football player.
Yeah.
If that's how simple it was. That's what you would do.
No doubt.
That's just not the case. I mean, can you play football is the most important thing.
Mhm.
But a lot of these analytics and a lot of these measurable people, they look at size, weight. And here's how you tell them. They start telling you about their size, weight, height, how many yards they ran for, what are the completions, how many interceptions they had. And you haven't said anything about playing football yet. You said
Right.
nothing about playing football. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, when CJ Stroud didn't do well on his test,
Right.
because I was in a meeting on this, and I had him as my number one player. And he's the only first round draft guy as a quarterback I would take in the first round. And somebody goes, "Well, he didn't do well on the test." I said, "He didn't?" I said, "Well, let me ask you this: what are we doing on Sunday? Are we taking tests? Are we playing football?" He goes, "What do you
Right.
mean?" I go, "Well, what are we doing on Sunday?" That's
Mhm.
all I'm asking. What are we doing on Sunday? It's a simple question. What are we doing on Sunday? Are we
Amen.
taking a test or are we playing football?
Right.
Well, we're playing. Okay. He's smart when he plays football. That's all I can tell you. There's nothing that says he's done playing football. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. So if you want to take that test and you want to hold that against him, that's how you get fired. That's how you
Right.
get fired, by doing stupid stuff like that. Making an
Mhm.
evaluation of something that has zero to do with football. And
Right.
saying, "Oh, this kid can't play now because he didn't pass well on a test." Dumb.
Right. Do you
So
do you
things can be, I just misinterpreted, and they take him in the wrong way, and they
right.
use him in the wrong context, because it had nothing to do with him playing football.
Do you think NFL teams lean more toward the analytics as opposed to trusting the scouts that they have hired? I mean, looking at the
Well,
tape.
listen, I would say majority of scouts are analytics.
Mm,
They,
that's crazy.
they're measurable gatherers. Very few scouts are football players. And look for football players.
Right.
There's a mixture of them. You know,
Mm,
um, and like I said, you could tell a measurable guy, but that's all he talks about, man.
yeah.
Size, weight, height. And if you're 6'1" and 220 and you run a 4.4, you're going to be a good football player. Doesn't matter what your position is.
Yeah.
It has
I,
absolutely
I
nothing to do with it, but it's just something that tells you your measurables physically.
right.
Tells you nothing about football. And so I always
Mm,
try to listen for guys. If I was in charge of scouting, in charge of a program, many one of my guys would be football evaluators.
yeah.
Football
Looking at them.
evaluators. We're looking for football. You can gather me to
Right.
40. You can sit there and tell me, but don't sit there and tell me he's a good football player because he runs a 4.4. Do not tell me that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
I
do not
just
want to hear that.
I always say it here to everybody. I feel like you got to look at the football intangibles more than anything else. I just think that playing football matters, and I just feel like we've gotten away from that.
That's what you're
Definitely.
doing on Sunday. You're playing,
Yes.
and really, what's the hardest thing about college to the National Football League. There's a bunch of things in this order. First of all, it's the most highest IQ of any level of football. It is not. It is not. It's nothing like high school to college. High school to college is a jump. It's a
Mm,
it's a little bit of a jump.
right.
College to the National Football League is a monumental jump,
That's
IQ
crazy.
wise. Okay, then
Mm,
it's about quickness, and then it is about speed, and then you throw all those other things up there with toughness and instincts and all those other things that matter. But if an intelligent player, I don't care what your position is, you've got to
right.
be a smart football player. You got to
Yeah.
understand the game. You got to have instinct. Really, smartness includes instincts and toughness. That's where you start.
Mm,
Then the quickness of the game, the start and stop, because the field in the NFL is different than college. The length and width are the same, but the hash marks are different.
right.
College, they're wide, so that's why college plays on the perimeter.
Hmm.
Well, in the NFL, they're narrow, and that's why you have to play in the middle. And that's why actually quickness, the ability to start and stop,
Hmm.
is a much better skill set to have than just raw speed.
Right.
Because that ability to be dynamic laterally and vertically, man, you can actually play in the National Football League and be successful without having elite speed. Shoot, the
Right.
greatest receiver in NFL history runs a 4.6, Jerry Rice. Leading
That's
rusher,
crazy.
all-time leading rusher in the National Football League runs a 4.6, Emmitt Smith.
Wow.
But if you looked at their dynamics,
Right.
the ability to start, stop, and redirect, if they give you two lines and you want to play football, and they're like, you can come over here and run a 4.4, or you can come over here and you can be dynamic laterally and vertically, start and stop, and be as elite as there is. You had better jump in this line
Right.
all day long,
No
and then just
doubt.
work on your speed. Now, there's some rare guys that get it both,
Hmm.
and those guys are blessed. But if you don't have the ability to start and stop it, it is a harder transition if all you do have is speed.
Right. And that's what you're saying, the shuttle, like the shuttle 3-cone or whatever. That means a
Right.
lot
Start,
to
stop.
you.
You see people, your ability to start and stop and redirect. That is like,
Right.
like, okay, you're still running around cones and you know where the
Yeah.
cone is. Okay. In football, you don't know where the cone is. That's why, like, okay, it's somewhat of a correlation, but
Yeah.
it's still not football. Okay. The linebacker's not going to be right there. The safety's not going to be right there. And they're going to stand right there. And so I'm going
Right.
to go over here and over here. Okay. That doesn't happen, in football.
Right.
But it gives you an idea of your ability to start and stop.
Right.
That is one thing it does.
No doubt. With the draft rapidly approaching, we've been through some free agency. You've seen a second-year guy in Omar Khan, just to talk about the Steelers a little bit. Mike Tomlin, a veteran head coach. How do you think that they've navigated this offseason so far with free agency, looking toward the draft? And how do you think, they've built this team and this roster, and what deficiencies do they still have?
Well, so I worked with the scouting department, got to work and watch Mike and Omar execute in person, and I got great respect for both of them.
Mhm.
What they have done this year, the quarterback position has, Patrick McQueen has forgotten. I mean, they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need somebody inside linebacker. That inconsistency, and then unfortunately they brought that in, and then they got hurt.
Right.
And the depth in there and how they end up playing is actually I think one of the most incredible things. What happened in the NFL this year is how well they kept playing
Mhm.
with their lack of reps and the lack of experience they had towards the end of the year.
Mhm.
Now, when you look at the quarterback situation, I really like Kenny Pickett. I'm telling you, I was disappointed he didn't want to compete. I was
Me too.
that one surprised me. But when I sat back and I really looked at it all based on all the dynamics that existed, I think sometimes it's a win-win. And I
Mhm.
think it was best Kenny, especially if he's going to feel like that, man, all that was going to do is harbor ill will. And that was never going to change. To
Right.
move on, I think is best for him because I do believe he has a great chance of being a very good quarterback in the National Football League. And I have
Mhm.
always loved Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I loved him out of high school. I mean, out of Ohio State. And here's what I liked about it. In fact, I was looking at my notes before we got to this. There was one note I had on him,
Mm.
and it was in big letters,
Mm.
and it's raw. He was just raw. He did so many things that were right, but he would make some mistakes. You could say in his processing.
Right.
He'd be his accuracy was good, got a big arms, athletic. But the two things that are most important in transitioning to the National Football League are accuracy and processing, and they got to be like this. You can't have one without the other. His
Mm-mm.
processing was okay, but the reason it was okay is because he didn't have a lot of games. He didn't have a lot of games under his belt, and so he'd make some mistakes. You could tell he didn't identify things. So I'm like, okay, but he was identifying enough things correctly that it wasn't like, oh, this is a problem, and
Mhm.
he wasn't erratic all over the place, like this kid from North Carolina, the May kid. Oh my
Yeah.
god, oh my gosh, you if somebody made me draft him, I quit because I'm gonna get fired. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get fired, especially if
He's
he's a top
costing
three
you.
pick. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get fired. And if
Yes.
you made me draft him, so you're the owner, so you ain't
Mhm.
taking the fall. That's why you got me.
Right.
But anyway, not to sidetrack. But so what happened to him?
Mm.
3 new coordinators in 3 years.
Yeah. That's tough.
That's the last thing this kid needed. He's never had a chance to learn anything before he's relearning it.
Right.
He couldn't master. Sorry, he couldn't master anything because every time he turns around, he's learning and learning
Mm.
something new, something different, something new, something different. And I
Right.
can tell you from an experienced player, after playing in Chuck's system for 5 years and then switching, oh my, I felt lost. I was like, and especially if it didn't fit me.
Right.
It didn't fit a lot of us, and I'm not saying that none of his systems fit him. You could
Right.
tell that they struggled fitting him, and it is struggle fitting a kid who's raw because a lot of times coaches just don't have the wherewithal to just go, "Hey, I got to reduce this."
Right.
I use this. It's a parenting tool, but like I judge my kids in the yardsticks of their years and not mine.
Mhm.
So if
Right.
my kid at age 5 makes a mistake and I'm 35, we tend to look at it from a 35-year-old's eyes and we're
Right.
like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, that's fun.
Yes.
No, I get it. And
Mm.
so from a coaching perspective, I do that same thing. You know,
Mm.
this kid come out, he's got about he was at Ohio State for 2 years. He's raw. The last thing that we need to do is we need to overload the kid
Right.
and give him stuff he can't handle. We need to build this from the ground
Mm.
up. I'll tell you, one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen that got built from the ground up was when Jeff Fisher built Steve McNair.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways, which, okay, let's kind of get into where Pittsburgh might be going, which I believe the best way for them to go
Mhm.
is that you keep building on that running game. They did some
Right.
great things in that running game. Build on that running game. Arthur Smith knows how to. He's dealt with the guy in Tennessee,
Yeah.
King Henry, and you had great backs in Atlanta. That needs to be the foundational pin
Right.
on your entire offense. Then to complement, and this is actually where Russell Wilson has been his ultimate best, is
Yeah.
when he's a complement to an offense, not trying to be the offense, and when he's a complement off of hard run action, or
Mhm.
I mean even play action. See, those get used. So people always go play action when
Right.
actually it's run action. And there's actually two different things. There's actually four, if you want to think about it, or three: run action, play action, and RPO action.
Right.
So play action is this to help fans understand. If I'm the quarterback and the running back's back there and I fake a handoff to him, that's play action. Offensive line's still pass blocking, they're pass setting, but we're going to do some action to make it affect somebody out there. And then we throw off of that. Run action is when I go to hand the football off. It looks like I'm going to do it. The offensive line's coming out like blocking people, and
Mhm.
it looks like run. It feels like run. It smells like run. And then last second, I pull it out and then throw it. Like Russell Wilson is awesome at that.
Mhm.
That is one of the greatest ways to foundationally build a quarterback, because you paralyze the box and then you give him an either or read. It isn't like, we're going to go a 2x2 set. You're going to be able to disguise coverages, pressures on me. Give me all kinds of crazy things to look at. So now, if I'm not a real experienced player, I'm already overwhelmed by, like, oh my gosh, what are they in? And what are my
Right.
route combinations? And where should I start? You take all that away.
Right.
You get him to where he can do that after he's had a lot of these reps, and he's built from this ground up, this run action,
Mhm.
this RPO action, this play action. Yes, you still got to line up on third down. Sometimes it's third and
Sling it.
7, and we got to be able to play.
Right.
But if I have to do that, if I get to control that and do that 20-25% of the time,
Right.
advantage me. If I
Yeah.
end up doing that 60-70% of the time with my guy who's very
Yeah.
raw, I'm gonna have trouble. And so
Right.
I think they have an opportunity to really build both. I mean, resurrect Russell Wilson, because and he's got to
Yeah.
take ownership of going, okay, this is what I'm best at. I am
Yes.
not Peyton Manning. I am not Tom Brady. I'm not that kind of quarterback. I am a run action complement.
Mhm.
I'm not an offense. And if he can do that, because he is a great deep ball thrower and he
Right.
executes that well. And if you got, and if you can just bring the young kid along, Justin Fields along, and let him get reps and under a system and develop and work and grow. They
Mm.
really could have an ideal situation,
Mhm.
and a one that could be around for a long time.
Are they gonna be able to let him grow, though? They gotta make that decision, what, pre-May 2 to be able to talk about his fifth-year option. Would that be Ben his best interest? Just say, "Hey, man, I'm gonna stay here for less money and, be steady for a couple years," you know? Would that be
Well,
best for him?
listen, you could answer that better after the year.
Yeah.
See, this will be his fourth year. So technically, they got 2 years.
Yeah.
And so it depends on how much he plays this year. If he
Mhm.
plays at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure they try to get him on the field just because he's too good not to. He's just some things you can do from a creative aspect to put a burden on a defense that I think that you'd be crazy not to find some way
Yeah.
to keep him interested and keep him apart. And so I expect that to happen. In what fashion, I don't know.
Right.
But you still have 2 years with the kid, and listen, here's how I would tell him. I go, listen, you got 2 years here. Here's what we're going to do. I'd give him a plan of a vision, how I would envision him based on how raw he is and how I want to see him grow and develop. And you got 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, okay, if you are where we think you are and you where you want to be,
Right.
well, my gosh, we're gonna, pay you.
Yeah.
We got no choice but to pay you.
No, not at all.
And so and salary cap wise, we're structured like that because
Yeah.
we haven't invested anywhere.
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
now it's up to you to earn that, to
Yeah,
still earn it.
definitely. No doubt. I think, yeah, I think they've done pretty good too. Thank you for all that. I know we're running short on time here. I know we're getting close. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything that you wanted to bring up? You know, anything you're doing now that you would like to bring up?
Well, I just appreciate you having me on the show. To be honest
I
with you,
appreciate you.
I
Thank you.
just anybody inspirational speaking is my foundation and what I love the most. And if you got anybody that business wise, corporate wise is interested in a message, find a way, merrillhoge.com. You can go to my website there, and
Mm,
we'd be happy to do something. I mean, work together with you if you needed somebody to come in and help your event and send a message that we'll be able to translate. And it's not just a moment, try to leave a message that you can translate into your professional craft and your personal life, and it's
mm.
transferable for the rest of your life, not just for an hour.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you've been an inspiration, definitely just on this show. Thank you. I appreciate it again so very much. Thank
No,
you
my
so
pleasure,
much.
brother. Love Steeler Nation, man. Love everything about them. They're the
They were
best.
pumped up
They're the
for you.
best in the NFL. They're the
Yeah, they
best
were
in the
definitely.
NFL.
Definitely. Thank you again, Merril. We're going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you all for coming through. Sorry we didn't get the questions, but we're running short on time. So thank you again, Merril. And until next time, guys, we'll see you. Thanks, Merril.
Go Steelers, baby. See you, brother.
See you. Thank you.